The children and young people of the world are going to have to deal with the problems caused by the generations of adults before them. Why was this allowed to happen, and what do you say to the children who think that there's no point in trying to be green because it won't make a difference?
Very good question. Excuse me, finishing my chocolate biscuit. Really good. For most of the time that we've been putting carbon into the atmosphere, your parents, grandparents, my parents, grandparents, didn't know what we were doing. So it was a bit like what used to happen before people realised that smoking caused cancer and made people die. Lots of people used to smoke, and if you read the old, you go and see the old movies, 1940s and 50s, you'll see people puffing away, virtually everybody smoking. And that's really fallen back a lot as people understand the medical risks. And the same thing is happening with climate change. The same thing is happening with people's awareness of the damage. And there are still some people who say no, they dispute it. But the overwhelming scientific consensus is that obviously this is very dangerous. And slowly but surely I think we're making progress so that the governments of the world are beginning to get to grips with the problem. If you look at what they're doing as opposed to merely what they're saying. And that includes some of the governments that in the past have been quite difficult to persuade on this issue. So I think things are moving along, but they're not moving as quickly as I would like. And we in Britain and the British government, and this is actually across all the political parties, want to see faster progress than we've had so far.
What do you think the world will be like by the time we're your age?
Well, I hope that the world isn't going to be very different to what it is today, but that does depend absolutely crucially on us taking responsibility for what we're doing. And there are some things that are happening in the world which are, I think, potentially quite worrying. Not just obviously the climate change issue, but that's tremendously important that we tackle that, but also things like population growth. Because the population when I was born of the whole world was about 2.5 billion people, and the population of the whole world is now 6.5 billion people, and by the time you're my age it'll be about 9.5 billion people, and we will have gone past the point at which there will be more people alive on this planet than have ever previously been born, which is a fairly shocking thing to think about when you think about it. So we've got a lot of challenges, you've got a lot of challenges over this period. But the key thing is that we tackle climate change, because if we don't tackle climate change, there's going to be massive problems in growing enough food. There's a lot of the areas of the world where at the moment we can grow food, in the tropics will become so hot that actually it'll be very difficult to do so, and they may well turn into deserts. Parts of the world, like for example the Amazon rainforest, could die back. There's already evidence of that happening. And we know from past episodes of the world's history that somewhere like the Sahara Desert did once have a lot of vegetation, a lot of plants and trees. And we know that there can be a lot of melting of ice caps, and if you get melting of glaciers, if they're above the sea, obviously they melt, they become water and the sea level rises. So anybody living near the sea in a low level area, particularly big countries often where there are many rivers running down to the sea, like Egypt, Bangladesh, the lowlands in Europe, Netherlands, Vietnam, all of these areas can suddenly be affected by very big sea level rise, and some of our parts of our country would be affected as well by sea level rise. So that would be another potential effect if we don't tackle this problem. But that's why we've got to tackle it. We've got to get a grip, and I think we can get a grip. So I don't want you to think that this is going to happen. It could happen if we don't behave ourselves and do what we need to do.
What do you do personally to save energy and fight climate change?
Well, I guess all sorts of things. One of the things I do is that I try and come in and out of work on my bike. I try and walk. So I just walk back from the House of Commons rather than take a bus or take a car or whatever. When I do go for longer distances, I try and take a train rather than a car. And if I do have to take a car, I've got a hybrid car, which is a mixture of electric and petrol. I've got a wind turbine on my house in the constituency, which helps generate a bit of electricity, the electricity that I need in the house. It's all carefully double glazed to keep the heat in. So you've got double glazing, you've got insulation in the cavities of the wall, and you've got loft insulation, because one of the ways in which we waste energy enormously and create carbon emissions that we don't need to create is by keeping our heating at a level which is very high, and then not taking care that it's saved, that it stays in the home. So for example, do you know about Sweden? It's quite a much more northerly country than us. It's very snowy in the winter, and they have a temperature in January which is 7 degrees below ours, but they actually use less energy to heat their homes than we do. And that really shows you how much we could save if we managed to improve our homes so that they weren't leaking out all this heat. So all of that's very important, saving energy and making sure that your home is fairly well insulated. And that's good news too for saving on the family energy bill.